How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we welcome you to Season 4 of the Pitt Panthers Football Dynasty's 2019 season about to get underway, and we've got our season preview. You can see we've reverted back to the throwback colors, which are now the Pitt official colors that we're going to be using this season. I've edited the team jerseys to match as closely as I can with the jerseys that the Panthers now wear. So we got the blue face masks, the yellow numbers, everything like that. I've done my best to replicate those jerseys, and I can't wait to use them on the field this season. You can see in the offseason, you can take a look at the recruiting class that we put together, 5th ranked overall. We've already gone through that. We can take a look at the progression, of course, and see the players that have regressed throughout the offseason and the players that got an additional bump of progression. Kaiser Artis-Scott, our nickel corner, is fantastic. 89 overall as a junior. Patrick Jones, 90 overall as a redshirt senior, should be on pace for a fantastic season. So with those progression notes that we've gone through, let's take a look at what our roster looks like this season. We're going to take a look at the players we redshirted and go through each position group before we talk about kind of what our 2 deep is going to shape out like. So obviously, we have a great team, a lot of good, talented players. You can see we have 10 players already there, over 90 overall, and that's led, of course, by Kenny Pickett, our senior quarterback, 90 overall. We're not going to redshirt any quarterbacks there. We just don't have enough to bother redshirting. Halfback, we're going to redshirt 2 guys. Xavier Godfrey and Daenerys Carter are going to redshirt. Colin Wells will serve as our 3rd running back this season. We're also going to redshirt fullback Calvin Edwards because we got Samuel Smoot, plus we're not going to use that many fullbacks in the lineup this year anyways. Keith Onyango and Quincy Veers are both going to redshirt. We've got 5 solid receivers already, and Jay Keys will probably feature at receiver as well. An interesting choice I made, Jay Ballmer is going to redshirt this year because we have 4 tight ends. They're currently sophomores, and I don't want to get in a situation in 2 years where we have 4 senior tight ends. Of course, Bandino Mo, our 4th tight end, is actually our long snapper, but you have to be at least a tight end to use him as long snapper. But we're going to redshirt Jay Ballmer because Caleb Cann's a good player. He's a very good receiver. I think we can get him in some 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. And then we'll have Ballmer for an extra year so that when Greer's going to graduate, when Cannon's going to graduate, etc., we still have 1 more year of Ballmer, and that we're not completely trying to refresh all of our tight ends at one time. We're going to redshirt Wendell Matthews because he's 3rd, of course, on the depth chart at left tackle. We're not going to redshirt Charles Rhodes because he will be our backup at left guard. He'll also pretty much be our right guard backup as well. He'll be our interior line backup. And Brandon Ford, the left tackle you saw there, the junior, will be our tackle backup. He'll be our exterior lineman, not interior, so exterior lineman, I guess, backup there. Luke Davis, again, a freshman. He's not going to redshirt because he's our backup center, which is tough because it means he's only going to have 1 year probably of starting unless we play him at another position, guard or tackle, but it is what it is. Lonnie Jackson's going to redshirt as well because he just doesn't have the ability to play right now. 61 overall, he's just not good enough, so he's going to redshirt for this season as well on the offensive line, and he'll hopefully, give him a couple more years to get ready behind Michael Collins. Jalen Hills, the left end, is going to redshirt because he's 3rd on the depth chart there. Sean Wolfgang and Ronnie Baker should split snaps on one side. Patrick Jones and Malachi Bordeaux going to split snaps on the other side. Nobody redshirt at defensive tackle, of course. Deuce Holland, outside linebacker, is going to redshirt because we moved Calvin Carlson over to be a backup outside linebacker. Nobody at middle linebacker or right outside linebacker is going to redshirt. Darion Mitchell is definitely going to play as a true freshman, so he's not going to redshirt for us. I'm expecting him to get a good number of snaps this year, and he should be a good player. He's not too terribly far in overall behind our starter, Jason Jordan. Like we mentioned, Kaiser Artis-Scott, you can see up to 89 overall. No redshirts available in our defensive secondary at cornerback at least, or at free safety. We moved Jacob Lachlan over to free safety because of the signing of Avery Heller. He's not going to redshirt. He's going to be our backup strong safety. We will redshirt Keon Gibbs, though, just because we don't see anywhere for him to play this season. So it should be a good team. If we look at our 2 deep for this particular season, Todd Sibley has had a bit of the edge in preseason camp for me. I've done a little bit of practice mode and things like that, and Sibley's just had a bit more jump for me. Even though he has lower speed ratings, he's just felt a bit quicker on the ball. He's got going a little bit better than CJ London, so I think he's going to go into game 1 at least getting the majority of the carries, but CJ London's definitely going to get his chance to play as well. We've got a ton of receivers. That's where things are going to be most interesting for us. We've got 3 senior receivers, but we've also got Paul Lease, who was a big contributor last year, Benjamin Ogden, who's got a ton of speed for a big body, and Jay Keys, who's really going to be the X factor. He's like a Cordell Stewart. I've been calling him Slash because he can play quarterback, slash running back, slash wide receiver, so he'll be very interesting to use. And of course, our linemen, we got 3 new starters on the line, 3 sophomore starters that can be in, only 1 senior in our offensive line. So if we can have a good progression this year, I think that'll set us up for an even better season next year offensively. So this will be a good year for us to grow. But where we don't have any room for growth is our defense. We have 8 senior starters. 7 of them are returning starters from last year. 8 senior starters overall, and then 3 junior starters. So our entire starting defense is upperclassmen, juniors and seniors, majority seniors. And if you look at their overalls, they're all incredible. We have like 3 starters who are under 80, I think 2 starters under 86 overall, 1 at 82 and 1 at 85, 1 at 86, and everybody else is like 89 and up. So our defense is on pace to be an absolute mammoth, just shut down defense. This is what's going to carry our team to the promised land potentially. Look at our secondary. We have 4 corners at 86 overall or better. If we give up over 250 passing yards in a game, I think that's going to be a bad game for us, even with the way NCAA passing's going. I think our defense is going to be incredible for us this year, and I can't wait to play with them. Of course, our specialists, same as last year. Jay Bump, kicker, very, very good and reliable. Eric Fox, decent punter. Maurice French, our kick returner. Kaiser Artis Scott will get another chance at punt returner, but Paris Ford may be waiting in the wings if Artis Scott can't get things going in that regard. And if we look at our schedule, you can see our strength of schedule comes out as a B. Not terribly difficult, which is good for us if we want to make a good run. I've tried to replicate the real games as much as I can. Ohio at home, Penn State away, UCF at home are our non-conference games that we were able to schedule to match with the 2019 season. The one game that we didn't match up with, of course, was Delaware at home because they're 1AA. So we filled that slot with Tulane just because I like their jerseys. I think it'll be a fun game. Throwback to D. Jeezy over at Operation Sports to get his team in there. So it'll be a lot of fun to play them. But Penn State is going to be the big game. No doubt about that. 2 kind of warm-up games for us, even though Ohio's pretty good. And then Penn State's the big game. UCF will be fun, of course, because we're playing against Ben DiNucci, our former starting quarterback from 2 seasons ago. So it'd be good to get to see him again. And then we take on Louisville. We're trying to avenge our 1 regular season loss from last season, which of course was at the hands of Lamar Jackson. He's not at Louisville anymore. They have Jawan Pass, though, who's a very similar type of quarterback, and it'll be a tough matchup for us, especially away from home. Then Wake at home. Wake's like 93 overall. They're actually really, really good. Their offense is like 97 overall, something absurd. They have a really good team, so I think that'll actually be a tough game, but we do have them at home, which is nice. Then at Virginia Tech, who's always a team that we seem to play well against, but they're always a talented team. Virginia will be a fun game taking them on at home because they've got Bryce Perkins at quarterback now, so that'll be a fun matchup. We'll talk about that a bit more when we get into the season preview. Then we do have a bye week, which will be good to take a little bit of a break after that run of a ton of games in a row there. We've then got Georgia Tech away. I think Georgia Tech we shouldn't have a problem with. Last year we just dominated them. They only scored 7 points. I think we beat them 17-7 in a pretty boring affair. Then Duke at home. They do still have Daniel Jones, so that'll make it an interesting game, having that level of quarterback there, but they don't have a ton of weapons other than that. North Carolina away should be really tough. They always seem to pass all over us, and they have a good quarterback, so I think their quarterback's 98 overall. Elliott, I want to say. Elliott is their quarterback still in game at least. And he's very good. They got a lot of talent. And Miami's going to be our toughest conference game, I think. 99 overall. They got Shariffs at quarterback still. I think he's like 98 overall, 97 overall. They have 3 or 4 receivers that are like 93 or 94 overall or better. So that'll be the game that really decides if we can hopefully get to the conference championship, win that again, and maybe make the ACC or the ACC championship and then make the college football playoff. You can see nationally we're forecasted at number 17 in the country. Overall is the ranking we come in as. We're number 4 in the ACC, the way they rank the teams out behind Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville. And then it goes to us. For us, the key to success really is going to be defense wins championships. Our defense is going to be the backbone of our team. Pat Narduzzi's been a defensive genius from when he was at Michigan State, and he's finally got that underway here at Pitt. And with the number of top quality seniors and upperclassmen we have, that's going to be what leads us to victory. And if we rely on the offense, it's Kenny's team. Kenny Pickett takes over. Well, he continues to kind of take over because we don't have the stud running backs anymore, which means if we're going to win the game, it's going to be on the shoulders and the arm of quarterback Kenny Pickett. So I look to him to have a big season for us. And for him to have a good season, it means our offensive line has to put things together. Of course, we've got 3 new starters on the offensive line. They're all young guys, so we'll see what they can do. But I have a lot of faith in the offensive line to put things together after this offseason. Breakout players expected for this season. Patrick Jones, we've already talked about him. He's one of the most dominant players we've ever seen in camp, so it remains to be seen if he can do it in the regular season. Jay Keys, our slash player. We expect to see a bunch of snaps for him at receiver, not necessarily at quarterback, as well as potentially in the Wildcat, so he's going to be an electric player for our offense. And then Paris Ford. He had a bit of a down season last year after an incredible freshman year. I expect him to bounce back and have a really good year. So the questions now, as we look at the ACC, you can see the projections there on the right-hand side for the divisions, team overalls, and where they're currently ranked by the NCAA. But who's going to win the conference? I mean, if you're a betting man, you bet on Clemson. Number 3 in the country, 99 overall still. They got Kelly Bryant at quarterback. Their defensive line, led by Dexter Lawrence, I think is still there. 92 or better on all 4 of their defensive linemen. They're very, very good. Best player, though, I think Amon Richards from Miami. He's like 98 overall as a receiver. He's got an incredible number of catches. And behind that, quarterback Evan Shariffs, he's going to get a ton of targets, probably put up a ton of catches, ton of yards, ton of touchdowns. Honestly, I think he could be a threat for the Biletnikoff this year. Biggest question mark has to be Jawan Pass for Louisville. He's replacing Lamar Jackson, who won the Heisman last year. So those are big shoes to fill. And not only that, but he doesn't have a ton of weapons. They graduate a few guys. They don't have a ton of receivers there anymore. So I think it'll be tough for him to live up to Lamar Jackson's billing. But he's a similar style of player, so he should at least slot into their offense and cause some problems. And then the dark horse, like I mentioned, Bryce Perkins has transferred from Arizona State as a graduate to Virginia. He takes right over as the starting quarterback. They have a ton of good receivers. I think they have 4 receivers of 90 or better, a tight end that's 89 overall, a halfback that's 88 overall. Ton of talent. Bryce Perkins has great speed as well. So with his dual threat ability and the talent that they have, they're a team that could really turn some heads this season in the ACC. And as we look over the NCAA, the biggest story, something that I factored in using the editor to be able to move players around, the NCAA editor you can get on operationsports.com, is the transfers. I use graduate transfers, and the biggest story, Joe Burrow moving from Ohio State, where he actually finished 3rd in the Heisman voting last year, to LSU to become their starting quarterback and try and win a national championship with a team that was really a quarterback away from it last season. He's looking to be that guy. That means Dwayne Haskins is going to take over at Ohio State. Still a ton of weapons there, and it'd be an interesting thing if they both happened to make the college football playoff and had to face off with each other. Washington got a new quarterback through the graduate transfer portal. USC got a new quarterback. You can see DiNucci moved to Central Florida. A ton of different players moved around just based on guys that were down on the depth chart. I thought, let's move them up, give them a starting position at a school that really needs it, that would be realistic. So you can take a look at those transfers there, pause the video, and look at all the transfers that may have happened, as well as the teams that are projected to win both the Power 5 conferences, or at least be in the mix, the top 3 teams as projected by NCAA football, and then the teams that are projected, they're not necessarily the highest overall rated teams, but the teams that are projected to win the Group of 5 conferences as well. Definitely a few teams that could potentially surprise, break into, as we used to call them, BCS busters, a few teams that could surprise there. But for the most part, it's a similar set of squads to what we saw last season. So as we look through, we are going to do kind of a conference-by-conference review of the projected teams. So for those of you that are interested in that, of course, Pitt projected to win the Coastal. Virginia Tech, Miami are, of course, the top 2 projected teams behind them, as they typically are. But I think North Carolina has a very good team that could make a run, really good offense. Same with Virginia. They both have a lot of talent. I'd expect them to, depending on how results go, to be competing for, to be honest, even a Coastal Division crown. Both teams are actually pretty solid. Miami probably has the most talent, but they never seem to put it all together. So we'll see how things go there. On the Atlantic side, I mean, Clemson's the best team, no doubt about it. Florida State, though, has a ton of talent. And I think last year, if I remember correctly, they beat Clemson. Or no. Louisville beat Clemson, but Clemson beat Florida State, but Clemson beat North Carolina State, so Clemson ended up making the ACC championship game on the tiebreakers, interestingly enough. but they did have 1 or 2 conference losses last season. So they're not invincible, but it'll definitely be an uphill battle for anybody else to knock off the Tigers, no doubt about that. When we look at the American, Houston is the projected winner. Very good overall. Of course, they got De'Aaron King at quarterback, but SMU is an under-the-radar team that I like. 99 rated offense for SMU. That's incredible. And I think they're going to be which is crazy because they lost 2 90-plus overall receivers to the draft this season, and yet they still have a 99 overall offense. So they're going to be sick. Oklahoma, of course, projected to win the Big 12 with Texas right on their heels as per usual. Big 10 is going to come down to a battle in the Big 10 East. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, all the top 3 favored Big 10 schools. Illinois is the top favored team out of the Big 10 West, and they're favored in 4th. But to be honest, if we had to go talent-wise, I'd say Nebraska probably has the best chance to make the title game again like they did last season against Ohio State. And I think Ohio State has to win the Big 10, no doubt about that with the talent level they have. Conference USA, Middle Tennessee State the favorite as they were from last year. Very good school, but Marshall could at least give them a run for their money after having a good season last year. Independence, not a conference, but we want to go through just those teams that are available. Notre Dame, of course, 99 overall. They're a team that's always going to make a run, potentially for the New Year's Six and for the college football playoff. In the MAC, PJ Fleck and Western Michigan are projected to win the MAC. I think if they come through and do that and have another good year like they did last year, he could be well on his way to moving on to bigger and better things. And what school that is, it remains to be seen. Wyoming is favored to win the Mountain West. They won the Mountain West last season. But I think if you're looking quality of team-wise, Nevada at 90 overall, San Diego State 90, Boise State 88 overall, those are probably the teams that have a more likelihood to win. Wyoming's lost a lot of talent. Josh Allen graduated, the quarterback. And so it'll be tough for them to repeat, but they do have the intangibles there. Pac-12 favorite, of course, is Washington, as they are coming off an undefeated national championship season, but they are replacing a lot of starters. They're replacing their quarterback, of course. They did get a graduate transfer from Wake Forest and Kyle Kearns. I like Oregon as a dark horse this season. Justin Herbert looks very, very good for them. And I like USC a lot, to be honest. They can't do any worse than they did last year. Didn't win a game. They're projected bottom of the Pac-12 because they are rebuilding. They got a new coach. But I think with the talent they have, they could still be very, very good. SEC, it's Alabama or LSU's conference to win. Georgia could give them a run for their money from the other side of the division, as could Tennessee. But I think you're really splitting hairs, and you're coming down to Alabama and Jalen Hurts versus LSU and Joe Burrow. Those are really the two teams that are going to go at. A sleeper team just to look at, though, Ole Miss, projected 13th in the SEC, 99 overall team. So if there's a team that's gonna do well, Ole Miss, Mark Hudspeth at the helm now. They got rid of Hugh Freeze. That could be a team that does very well. Arkansas State, no doubt they're going to come out of the Sun Belt, and to be honest, they could finish undefeated this season with the lack of strength in that conference. We'll also go through the kind of the preseason polls here. Top 10 are exactly kind of what you'd expect, similar from last season. We've dropped down. We're 17 to start the season. Penn State, our rivals, at 13. We'll see them in a few weeks in our real first test of the season. And we'll just kind of go through. This will give you an opportunity to see if your favorite team's not the Panthers and you want to see how, a team that's near and dear to your heart is doing in the career mode. Take a look, pause it as we go through. You can kind of note some big name teams. I like Miami. I like Oregon. Those are some high rated A and A plus teams that are in the mid 30s and things like that. Those are teams to really watch out for. Ole Miss at 61, I think, is going to be very, very good. I like Wake as a sleeper at 67. A overall, very, very good and talented there. USC is down here in the 80s somewhere, I think. 86 as an A plus team. They're going to be very good. I would probably hinge my bet on 8-4 regular season at least for USC this year. That would be my over and under, would be 7.5, I'd say, wins, and I would probably take the over. So I think they're going to be a very good season, very good team this season, and be one to watch out for as a sleeper and one that can pull some upsets. One last thing I like to check out is just the projected 4-year outlooks. How do they like how our team is looking, not just for this year, but for the years in the future? Of course, this changes as the year goes on. If your team goes up to number 1, then your championship outlook is going to be a bit better for a couple of years because they think, oh, never mind, they're actually pretty good. But Washington, number 1 for this year. Interestingly enough, they dropped down to 31 the year after that. Florida State goes up to 1, Clemson 2. Ole Miss goes from 61 to 3. That shows you the level of talent they currently have on their team. They had a bad year last year. I think they were 3-9, I want to say. But they have the talent that if they catch lightning in a ball, they can be very, very good. Same with USC, up to 12, just like that next year. So a lot of teams that have the talent that just underachieved last year that'll be interesting to see next season. It was fun to see like Texas A&M as a team that jumps up. Tennessee's pretty consistently good, although they bumped down in year 4 for their projection. UCLA is actually projected number 1, and we kind of bounce around a little bit, but stay pretty much in the mid-20s to the low teens for all of our projected seasons. So it's one of those things. Our goal is to get back to the college football playoff and win the ACC again. But, you know, I think the reasonable expectation for the Pitt program is 9 to 10 wins. If we can do that every year, we are a fantastic program. Anything above that, we are exceeding our expectations, and hopefully we can continue to keep that up. If you look at the top stadiums in the country, we've been 18-2 at home in this career mode. We've made Heinz Field a real fortress. Fans love coming out. I mean, when you have a team that makes the college football playoff, fans are going to come to the games, and they've been showing that off. Now, final bit of preview. Week 1, big games. Louisville, Tennessee is a big game to see who's going to be a team that could maybe make a run this year. Notre Dame, Texas, top 10 battle. One of those teams is going to have a big loss already. LSU, Joe Burrow's first game for the Tigers is against South Carolina, so we'll see what he can do. And finally, Michigan State looking to go into Tuscaloosa and pull the upset, taking on Alabama and Jalen Hurts, a team that they've been okay this career mode, 1 or 2 losses every season. This year's the year they want to get back and show off what they can do overall and try and make the college football playoff if at all possible. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the season previews. I love making these little graphics for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed them, because I did, you know, take a good amount of time to put the work into them. I had to recolor everything. I had to remake all these tables and things like that, make the little articles and blurbs that are on there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, please leave a like on the video and let me know in the comments that you like those, what your favorite storylines are for this coming season, both for Pitt as well as nationally. Did you like the transfers that I made to the different schools? Did your favorite school pick up a new quarterback that's going to help them improve this season? I think it's going to add a great deal of fun to the career mode, seeing how players do over at their new schools, much like we see in real life. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, hail to Pitt. Take care. We'll see you soon. Next video will be recapping week 1 and a preview of our game coming up versus Ohio to open the season. So as always, guys, hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.